Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome this evening. We're going to start off with with our annual meeting because we're required by our bylaws to do this. I'll try and make this quick and painless. We'll have two things that we have to do to start with. The first thing we want to do is to determine if we have a quorum, and we do according to Doug, so that's business taken care of. We're going to have two motions here. The first one that will come up in a couple minutes, I'll make President's remarks, Treasurer's remarks, then we will vote on we'll vote to approve, hopefully, our minutes from last year's meeting of a year ago. And then after that, we will have our nominating committee, which will present the slate of directors replacing those who are moving off this year. And we will then vote on that, okay? So that's where we're going. As far as my remarks go, the President's remarks, we began 2022 in a cautious but prudent fashion, still mindful of the concern over COVID, and it had an impact as a result. The first two of our 12 programs that we had last year, we had 12, the first two were virtual, January and February, and those were decisions to cancel and put on Zoom as we realized that we had not backed away from the pandemic enough. Our average attendance, including those virtually and throughout the year, was about 150 roughly that we have had. So that's what we've averaged. You might not see everybody here, that number, but by the time it gets posted on YouTube and people get to look at it, we note that the numbers go up. I'd like to commend and even thank our program committee members for their work in locating and bringing before us experts in diverse fields of international affairs. That's Larry Silverman, who's the chair, and I see Dan Malachuk in the very back row, who's a co-chair. So thank you so much to the two of you for what you've done as far as putting on our programs. And thanks in part to various or a couple of free services for our members, we've been able to maintain a strong membership base. That's over 225 is what our paid membership, if you will, is. First, we had, for a while, we had the What in the World free weekly trivia quiz. Actually, that was provided by the Tennessee chapter and provided us, and then we uploaded it and passed it on to everybody. That was very interesting, frankly. There was a complimentary online, or still is, quarterly journal, The American Diplomacy. And third is, we still receive daily, 5 times a week, the Daily Chatter newsletter, which is my first read every morning. So we've maintained the support of 12 renewing sponsors who are so important to us, and we're very appreciative of their continued support for our programs as well as our scholarships. And I want to add that we encourage, as I've announced a couple months ago, those members who want to become individual or corporate sponsors. And please contact Susan Barton, who is in the very back corner over here, or Justin Godshow, who is in the very back corner over here, if you're interested in so doing. We've had a couple members do that, and we appreciate that. Our treasurer's report will be presented by Chip O'Brien in a couple minutes. And we've been able to attract 4 new directors to the board from very diverse backgrounds. And Susan Terrio, our nominating committee chair, will present the slate for a vote on these to our membership in a couple minutes. Additionally, I want to mention, as an aside, but it's an addition to our board, is that Antoine Smoke, back here with his hand up, and Justin in the back right corner, have joined our board to replace a couple members who've resigned. Unfortunately, the pandemic did force us to cut back on a couple of programs that we've sponsored in past years, but we have picked up on this. The council's support for study abroad students at Georgia Southern and Savannah State was reduced early in the calendar year because of travel restrictions. But the good news, it's been reinstated. Frankly, as I've said, this is a very important function of this council, and your support to provide that money to the students who travel overseas and study overseas is important. Our sponsorship of the Great Decisions program, which I have enjoyed for 3 years under Chip O'Brien's leadership, and our popular international trivia fundraiser were canceled this year, both because of concern for the health and safety of participants and those actually who were organizing them, unfortunately. A look at the future, the board is considering presenting programs at alternate sites. So, for instance, our February 23rd program is projected at this time to be held at Benedictine Academy, making attendance somewhat easier for our downtown members, but not so far for members who live close to our current site. So we're trying to satisfy or optimize. I would see that we probably have 6 to 8 programs here a year, and one further downtown and 1 or 2 at Benedictine during the year. Stay tuned and please read the further notices from Doug, who provides them about our February program. So that concludes my remarks, except to say that I'm proud of the work done by the Savannah Council this past year with your support, and feel a great deal of satisfaction and accomplishment for the work done on behalf of our membership in promoting awareness of international issues for the Savannah community. So having said that, I conclude my president's remarks, and I'd like to introduce Chip O'Brien, who will present the treasurer's remarks. Chip?
Thanks, Jim. Before I make the remarks that I'd prepared, I wanted to, and Jim didn't see this, but we have at least 5 or 6 students from Savannah Country Day School who have arrived, maybe a 7th. What school are you from?
Country Day.
Country Day. So thank you, all of you, for coming. I hope you get a lot of extra credit in your courses, but we really appreciate your coming. I hope you learn a lot and challenge the ambassador later on. I'm pleased to present the Treasurer's Report for the Savannah Council on World Affairs. Although our current fiscal year will end on June 30, 2023, we typically report on our financial position at this annual meeting each year. First, your council remains financially healthy with a debt-free balance sheet and solid cash position. And Jim mentioned our president's gratitude and all of our directors' gratitude for our continued membership and sponsorship support. Thanks. Second, we continue to receive generous donations from directors and members, specifically earmarked for the Study Abroad program, which is a scholarship fund. We awarded, despite, as Jim mentioned, the slowdown in the early part of last year, we've awarded nearly $10,000 in scholarships in the past year. There was a surge benefiting 15 students at Georgia Southern and at Savannah State. Third, your council applied in the last year for 2 grants, and we were awarded those grants from the World Affairs Council of America and its partners, the International Labor Organization and the Korea Economic Institute. The first grant resulted in a presentation this past April, which covered gender gaps in our international labor force. And the second grant will support a presentation on February 23 of this year, so just a month ahead, on the future of Korea, especially notable given the recent large Korean investments that have been announced in our neighborhood. Fourth, despite being an all volunteer organizations, and I want to emphasize that we can always use your help in addition to your dues. Our costs rose modestly in 2022 as we resumed in-person monthly presentations, bringing to Savannah the speakers that Jim referred to from around the country, and as a result we incurred slightly higher transportation costs, lodging, and event space rental costs. Finally, after a 3-year hiatus, we are planning to, we're keeping our fingers crossed, planning to resume our international trivia fundraiser for the scholarship fund later this spring. Hope to get it in this spring and hope you will again participate. Watch our newsletter, watch our website for those details. Finally, let me remind you that our books and records are available for review by any member who would like additional information. Just send us an email or contact me after the meeting. So again, I echo Jim and the rest of our board. Thank you very much for your continued support. Jim?
Good job. Thank you. Thank you. All right, thank you, Chip. Next, I'd like to request approval and the minutes for last year's board meeting held in, I think, January 10th or 20th last year. They were provided to everyone in the notice that Doug sent out. So I would like to request approval of the minutes of our 2022 annual meeting held on January 20th, and I would like to make the motion that those minutes be approved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, good. Thank you. Thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce Susan Terrio. And Susan, right in front of me. Yeah, don't need to look back to row 6, who will introduce our slate of proposed new directors. And as Susan does so, we'd ask that they stand and be recognized as they're introduced. Susan, it's yours.
Thank you. Good evening. It's my pleasure to introduce the prospective candidates who have all been interviewed and affirmed their interest in joining the board. And I'm going to present them in alphabetical order. First of all, Bob Chandas. He has an MBA from Fairleigh Dickinson University and has held numerous executive positions in human resources at a number of companies until his retirement in 2018, and Bob is in the back. He'll begin his first full term as a director in 2023. Jose da Cruz has a PhD in political science from Miami University in Ohio. He is a tenured professor at Georgia Southern and a research professor at the U.S. Army War College. And he's also, as many of you will remember, a past president of our council, and he sits on the board of the World Affairs Councils of America. Third is Jennifer Dwyer. She's in New Zealand, so she won't be able to join us this evening. She has a PhD in political science from the University of Chicago, and she taught at Columbia until her retirement in 2019. Kevin Goldberg is here. Where is he? There he is in the back. Yes. Kudos from his students. He has a PhD from the University of California at Los Angeles, and he chairs the history department at Savannah Country Day. Jacek Lubecki is right here in the second row. He holds a doctorate in comparative politics from the University of Denver, and he is a tenured professor in political science at Georgia Southern as well. Jacek will begin a second term on the board, and we are thrilled that he will continue. Finally, Father Frank Zimkowitz. Is Father Frank here? I don't think so. He has a Master of Divinity from St. Vincent Seminary, and is currently the headmaster of the Benedictine Military School in Savannah. So I will offer a motion for the membership to approve this proposed slate of new directors to a 3-year term on the board, and upon approval, we will proceed to a vote. May I have a second? Second. Thank you, Jacek. Are there any nominations from the floor? Hearing none, I think we should proceed to a voice vote. So all those in favor of this proposed slate, please say yes. Yes. Any opposed? Any opposed? No. All right. So the yeses have it. I'd like to express my gratitude for those directors who are rotating off the board. Olavi Aarons, I know I saw Olavi. Right there he is. Ben Bongang, I don't think he's here. Fred Langley either, but I know Dan Malachuk is here. There he is. Okay, Mohammed Mukhtar and Molly Taylor. We are very appreciative for their past service on the board, and I think that concludes my business.
Nicely done. Thank you, Susan. So, watching Susan reminds me that we had a motion and a second to approve the minutes for last year, but we did not have a vote. Red-faced as I am, I would still like to ask all those in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, thank you. Any opposed? All right, great, thank you. So, as Susan did, and that was appropriate, I'd like to also express my appreciation, not to drag this out, but it's important to thank those who put time in as directors of this organization. We have 4 serving directors, as Susan said, who are rotating off the board for a required respite, required by our bylaws. And Olavi, I don't know how many years Olavi has been the recording secretary, but it is so important to us that he records our board minutes as well as our annual meeting minutes. And Olavi, how many years have you been on the board?
Over 10 years. So.
Yeah, and then some. Yeah, so thank you. Dan has been the program's co-chair and is for the 4 years you've been on, Dan? 3 years. And we're very appreciative. And then Ben Bongang and Mohammed Mukhtar have been co-chairs of our Outreach and Scholarship Committee. So thank you to the 4 who are rotating off. Next, I'd like to ask if there are any additional business items from our members. I see none. And last, I would like to say that our 2022 or 2023 officers would include, I would be, the board has asked and I've accepted to be the president for next year. Justin would be the recording secretary. I'm sorry, Justin, I'm sorry, Justin, not Jacek. Justin would be the vice president. Jacek would be the recording secretary, and Doug would continue. Doug is around, Doug is over there, and Doug would continue as the corresponding secretary. So we're in the process of making a final selection for a treasurer, and that has not been happened yet. We'll let you know when that's happened. So if there being no further business, I'd like to adjourn this meeting. Thank you for attending, and we will start our presentation in just a minute. So if you need to go get coffee or anything, please do so, but I think it's best that we jump right into the program, right?